Imagine you're in a forest and you see a fallen tree, and there's somebody sawing at the tree trunk, and they're going at it really vigorously, and they look close to being exhausted. And you come up to them and you say, "What have you been doing?" "Can't you see? I'm sawing." "Yeah, but how long for?" "Oh, I don't know. It must be hours." "Oh, you must be tired." Oh, you wouldn't believe it." "Well, why don't you take a break and sharpen your saw? I think you'll get on a lot better." "There's no time. I'm too busy sawing." Now, do you recognize yourself in that story, or somebody that you know? Taking time to sharpen the saw is a metaphor for taking time out to look at our well-being and our personal development. And I borrowed that story from Dr. Stephen Covey, and I was a bit concerned about borrowing it from him until my mind made the connection. And I realized that my grandfather was a saw doctor, and he made his living sharpening other people's saws so their work would be easy and they wouldn't have to struggle so much. And I do a similar thing. My name's Michael Warwick. I'm a teacher, I'm a life coach, and I'm a therapist. And today I want to talk about the education system. The fallen tree in the story, it's high stakes testing, it's accountability measures, it's data. It's all things that are very useful for measuring attainment and achievement, and useful for supporting attainment and achievement, but they pay very little attention to well-being and personal growth. And you know, wherever there's a conversation about education, people are saying the same thing. There's something wrong with education, it doesn't work anymore, we've got to change it. So my question is, what actually is wrong with the way that we're doing education, or we've done it up to this point? And when you see it, it's really obvious when I click through. We've separated attainment and achievement from well-being and personal growth. I could probably finish my talk there and just, that's it. Okay. Now, of course, achievement and attainment is really important. It's a human need to achieve, and formal qualifications, they open doors and they open new opportunities, but they don't tell the whole story. And when you talk to students and you ask them, why are you in school? They'll say, to get good grades and get a good job, sir. Or they might say, to get good grades, go to university and get a good job. But that's not the whole story. When you ask employers what they're looking for, they tell you something completely different. So the Confederation of British Industry, when they surveyed their members in 2016, only 23% of employers are looking at formal qualifications as their first criteria when they're employing college leavers and school leavers. By far the majority of them are looking at attitude and aptitude, which are personal qualities. So this get good grades, get a good job message, it's out of mode, it's not true, and we need to get that message through to the people who it affects the most, which are our children. And I just want to pause for a moment and just think about, what are the effects of separating young people from their well-being? I mean, what happens to any of us if we neglect our emotional needs for a sustained period of time? Well, the data tells us the picture. The Mental Health Foundation says that 10% of school-age children are suffering from some kind of mental challenge. Many of them cite pressures at home and pressures at school, the pressures at home related to the pressures at school as a major contributing factor. That's 1 in 10 kids. And how many kids is that in your neighborhood? How many kids is that in your school or your classroom? It gets worse when you look at university. In a recent YouGov poll, 27% of undergraduates said that they were suffering some kind of mental health challenge that was impairing their ability to function on a day-to-day basis. That's 27%. And what about us adults? You know, this tendency to separate achievement and personal development and well-being, that kind of follows us into the workplace also. In the UK, mental health challenges make up 28% of the disease burden. That's more than heart disease, and it's more than cancer. So if you're like me and you believe that education is the foundation of our civilization, it's pretty clear that something's wrong and something needs to change. So what do? Well, we do something really, really simple. We take achievement and attainment, we take well-being and personal growth, and we bring them back together, and we bring them back home where they belong, and we take on a more holistic view of everything that we're doing. Now that sounds fantastic. Well, who can't argue with that? But if you just stop for a moment and you put yourself in the shoes of a school leader, if attainment and achievement falls for them, then the school's in trouble. So the question has to be is, if we focus on well-being and personal development, does that mean achievement and attainment is going to drop? Okay. Well, the answer is no. In fact, it's the opposite. Attainment and achievement goes through the roof when you do this. You teach well-being and personal development in a pragmatic way so the students can use what they're learning, they can apply it to the challenges in front of them. When we did this in our school for 3 years, when we measured the students who had done the program compared to the students who didn't do the program, we found that they were on average attaining 9 GCSE grade points higher than their peers. And that was after we controlled for Key Stage 3 scores, which meant it wasn't just the academically inclined students who were benefiting from this. Now, 9 GCSE grade points in the old system in the UK is 1.5 grades higher on average across all of the subject areas. Now, those students, they didn't have different academic input. The only thing that was different about them was that they learned some well-being, some personal development strategies that they could apply to the challenges in front of them, and they could put them to work for them to meet their academic goals, and those were goals that they had set for themselves, by the way. So that kind of figure looks kind of unbelievable until you understand the strategies that they were using to do that. They were encouraged to break down challenges. When they came across a challenge that seemed potentially overwhelming, they break it down into smaller chunks so that it was something that they could grab hold of and they could take action in the present moment, and they keep their forward momentum. They were encouraged to connect with supportive networks amongst their peers and amongst their teachers and amongst their family and friends. And they worked on their emotional intelligence. They raised their IQ, their EQ. Now, that was their ability to understand and manage their own emotions so they could use them as guides to making wise decisions. And that's a definition that comes from Richard Barrett of the Richard Barrett Values Centre. Now, when you look at the research into how emotional intelligence affects GCSE scores, what you find is that higher emotional intelligence predicts higher GCSE scores right across the board. But it's quite interesting because you can even drill down into each subject area. So for instance, increased empathy predicts higher GCSE scores in the performing arts and creative writing, but also in biology as well. When it comes to applied maths and applied science, it's all about motivation, and it's all about low impulsivity. That's the ability to take your mobile phone, give it to your mum, come off your social networks, and get on with your studying. But right across the board, higher emotional intelligence predicts higher GCSE scores for everybody, which is brilliant news if it can be taught, and it actually can be taught. So we're going to do that now. We're going to go for Emotional Intelligence 101. Okay? We're going to use this model. It's the TFAR model. The TFAR model deals with thoughts, feelings, actions, and results. It's telling us that our feelings cause our actions. So, for instance, If I'm thirsty, which I actually am, and if there was a glass of water, which there isn't, I would be motivated to go to the glass of water, pick it up and drink it, because I think I'm going to feel better when I've quenched my thirst. If there's somebody next to me who's pushing my emotional buttons, is making me feel uncomfortable, I'm motivated to move away from them because I think I'll feel better when I get further away from them. Okay, so our feelings are causing our actions. Our actions are causing our results. There's the water. Wow, thank you. Our actions are causing our results, not just one great big action, but as the sum total of all the things that we do. So far, that's completely logical, right? The TEFAR model is telling us that our thoughts cause our feelings. It's almost like a thought is a light switch and it switches on the feeling. So we're going to try some little thought experiments just to test that theory. I would like you to think of an orange. Okay, think of your front door. So what's happened is a picture of an orange and a picture of your front door appeared in like a screen in your mind, yeah? Don't think of an orange. Whoops. Okay. Now those images, they don't particularly have emotional effect from you, so we need to try another little experiment. What I want you to do is I want you to go home in your mind now, go to your kitchen and pick up a big fat juicy lemon. Okay, do that with me now. Okay, put it down on a chopping block and get a very sharp knife and cut it in two, and now the juice is running everywhere. It's running over your fingers, it's running on the chopping block. And bring that up to your mouth, bring that lemon up to your mouth and take a big bite into it. Now that's not an emotion, it's still not an emotion, but it is your body reacting to a thought. Now I could get you to think about somebody who you love being safe and loving you in return, and that would be a really nice feeling. I could ask you to think about that same person in jeopardy. Please don't do it, but that would be a different feeling. You know, so our thoughts are causing our feelings. Oh, I forgot about him. Feelings are causing us to act, and our actions are causing our results. Now, when somebody gets hold of that, and they begin to realize that their emotional experience and the results in their lives are coming from an internal source, it's coming from their thinking, it's coming from something that they at least have some degree of choice about, then they start to step into a place of power. And when they are supported by other people who are working with that dawning realization, then the idea that things can change for the better starts to emerge and become a reality for them. And that, you know, this reminds me of an ex-student of mine. Her name was Dylan. And I was her drama teacher for a couple of years, and I could not get Dylan to even engage with drama. She was so disaffected. And it was the same thing across all of her subjects, and she was truanting lessons, and she was getting into trouble with her parents at home. And she came along to one of the programs, and I didn't think too much of it at all. And about 3 months later, Dylan approached me in school, and she went, "You all right, sir?" And I went, "Yeah, all right, Dylan," because I was quite glad not to be a teacher anymore, I have to admit. She said, "Sir, I've just got an A in my maths exam." I was like, "Really?" And she goes, "Yeah, and I'm doing really, really well in science too, and I'm getting on with my parents." I'm like, "No offence, Dylan, but that's quite surprising if you know what I mean." And she went, "Yeah, I know." I said, "Well, what's changed?" And she said, "Well, you know, I just didn't feel like I could do anything in school, so I didn't ever really try. But when you showed us that TEFAR thing, I kind of thought, well, maybe." And you know, one of the wonderful things, the most brilliant things about doing this kind of work is on exam results day, because I'll go along and I'll talk to the kids who've done the program, and they've just seen their results, and they're invariably, the goals that they set for themselves, they get those results. And I ask them, I say, "What's this whole process taught you?" And they'll say, "I've learned to believe in myself." Now for me, that is an educational outcome worth working towards. So we use the system to change the system. It's a really simple idea. We move to a holistic vision that's about the whole person, it's about the whole life journey, and it's not just about preparing kids for exams, it's about preparing them for life. And actually the tide is turning. You know, people are having these kinds of conversations about emotions, and we're beginning to feel more comfortable talking about our emotions. I mean, in the UK, on British TV, the young royals were talking about their mental health challenges. There was Harry and William and Kate were there. Now, you know, those two boys, they lost their mum in the most public way possible that we can never imagine, and none of us will ever experience, hopefully. And they talked about the conversations that they had in a therapeutic context as medicine. And that is a really strong message that I believe is getting through to the population. So this holistic way of living and working is the one that makes sense to me and to more people. So, you know, how do we get from where we are now to where we want to be? Well, we build a bridge. And the bridge is made out of human connection. It's made out of quality conversations that happen in classrooms, they happen at home, they happen in the community. And because it's a holistic vision, it requires all of you to come and take part. You know, I've got this dream that at some point in the near future, school will be about the whole community. Students will have their learning tailored to their individual needs, and they'll be solving real life problems. They'll be starting organisations, and they'll be starting businesses, and they'll be starting careers in school. You know, but we're not there yet. We just have to take it one step at a time and use the system to change the system. The bridge is probably going to look a little bit more like this. You know, I promise you that bridge is safe, but it might feel a little bit scary at first because it's new, and we're dealing with emotions, and emotions, you know, they can be tricky things. But what I'd like you to do is just connect to the why we would do this and why we are doing this. You know, we're doing it because it works. We're doing it because it's the right thing to do, and we're doing it because its time has come. So I really look forward to meeting you on that bridge. Thank you for listening.